want the decline and fall of America, then you must vote radical left Democrat.
I've seen so much riffraff just running around.
If you want to see this country continue, there's never been a time where our country was so embarrassed.
Benefits everybody. Hurts nobody.
We will fight the woke in the schools. We will fight the woke in the corporations. We will fight the woke in the halls of government. We will never, ever surrender.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese takedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No. By the way, where's Hunter? Where is Hunter? Remember? Where's Hunter?
I would defer to people like Dr. Fauci.
Your own family thinks you're wrong on this.
Does your family agree with everything that you say?
Definitely not.
We are going to take back our country. We are going to make America great again. That's what we need. Make America great again.
Well, there you have it. A lot can change in just a week. Welcome to another episode of The Campaign Trail. I'm Raheem Kassam, the editor-in-chief of the National Pulse, but you knew that already, that's why you're here. And if I may ask, if you wouldn't mind sharing this show with your friends and family, make sure it reaches a wider audience. Today, we are going to shift from discussing the campaign trail here in the United States, on Capitol Hill, where I am back again after a weekend in New York. Some of you would have seen me outside of that Manhattan courthouse as the verdict was handed down. 34 guilty counts, of course, nonsense guilty counts against President Trump in New York in that case. And then, as those of you who subscribe to the evening newsletter would have found out, somehow I got deathly sick, and I am still, as you can probably hear, a little unwell. But with the huge news today, I figured, how could I not come on here and talk to you about one Mr. Nigel Farage, my old boss, my good friend, and my goodness me, didn't we have a turn up for the books this morning when Nigel gets up there in Westminster and says to the world, you know what, I've changed my mind. And I'm sure a lot of you can remember me last week saying, look, he said he's not going to stand. In fact, some of us advised him that it's probably not a good idea when the Labour Party are easily going to cruise to victory in the UK general election. Some people had different motives behind telling him not to stand. Mine was not the commonplace one. Lots of people telling him, well, you know, you'll be blamed for the Tories losing. I didn't think that was really ever going to be the case. What I thought was actually more like, why bother, you know, being the face of the opposition campaign here when you can actually develop an opposition party in opposition and then run for parliament at the next election around. But things have changed over the past week, and we'll talk about what has specifically changed and whether I agree with Nigel's new decision. Those of you who know this show know that in recent episodes, I have taken to presenting a new piece of music that I compose as the end music to the show, and today's episode is no different. In fact, today's episode, Monday, June the 3rd, 2024, is probably the best piece of music I have composed to date. So you're going to have to stick around for that. I won't keep you too long. Let's get into what we heard today from Nigel Farage. So he says, over the past week, he has been out campaigning with his Reform Party. For those of you who don't know, that is the successor, the rebranding of the Brexit Party, which in turn was the successor proper to the UK Independence Party. Now, the sticklers amongst you will say, the UK Independence Party still exists. It does. but it's not really what it used to be, and it's not really what it's supposed to be, and it certainly doesn't have any steer or leadership or charismatic politicians involved with it. So it's kind of turned into just a shell, a party in name only, a Pino. And the Reform Party used to be the Brexit Party, is now kind of the home for a lot of small c conservatives, populist, nationalist, patriot, Brexit voters. And what has changed over the last week is that Nigel has been out and about campaigning for the Reform Party with its leader heretofore, Richard Tice, a nice man, but a man who is, let's say, just not as charismatic as Nigel Farage. And I'm not sure that Mr. Tice would take offense at me saying that. I know Richard very well. We have worked together in the past. There is really not very many people on planet Earth more charismatic than Nigel Farage. If you've met him in person, you will know that for certain. You will also, if you've met Donald Trump in person, probably recognize that the two are really, really at the same level in terms of how well they connect with people, and how welcoming they are to people, and how they treat you, and that how they remember things about you. Real, true, like oozing of charisma that you can't teach. Really, this is God given. It's innate for these people. And as we used to joke back in the 2015 UKIP days, you add to that kind of Nigel's man of the people aura, where he's having a few, well, we can say this, fags, cigarettes outside the pub, and a few pints, and it really kind of rounds that off in a way that nobody else, especially in British politics, comes close to. So he's been around and he's been talking to people, and he's been saying to them, "Will you vote for the Reform Party?" And of course, a lot of people will answer, "Yes, you've got my vote," or "No, I'm voting Labour, I'm voting Tory, I'm voting Liberal Democrat." I don't know why anybody would say that. But one of the responses that he's been getting a lot over the last week is, since he said he wasn't going to stand in a parliamentary seat, and rather just campaign as the chairman or president of the party, a lot of people have been saying to him, "Well, I would, but you're not running," or, "Well, I might, but I could be convinced more so if you were standing for parliament yourself." And our systems differ from the United States in a lot of ways, but they're similar to the United States in a lot of ways as well. We have the first past the post system, where you, for instance, if you are going to become a member of parliament, you have to pick a constituency of, what is it, 40,000, 50,000, and then stand for parliament, campaign locally. I've said it before, you really only have tens of thousands of pounds to play with. That's tens of thousands of dollars as well, doing the exchange. And it's not like an American election where you can just kind of hit the airwaves with millions of dollars of radio ads and television ads and so on and so forth. You're really knocking on a lot of people's doors. You're pushing a lot of leaflets through letterboxes. You're doing community town halls. You're doing billboard signs. You're doing yard signs. Very, very grassroots oriented way of campaigning to be an elected politician. I actually think possibly a better way, possibly something that you guys should look at in terms of getting big corporate money out of your politics. But don't let me teach you how to do your politics. The responses, therefore, seem to have convinced Nigel that actually, I was going to say Brexit Party there, if the Reform Party is going to amass a serious percentage of votes at the election, which is to say between 15 and 25% of the vote, really, then he needs to be more formally associated with it. His political future has to be on the line. He has to have more skin in the game than currently. And listen, I'm not there on the ground to make that determination. Perhaps if I was there with him knocking on those doors and seeing that for myself, I could give you a better answer as to whether or not I believe that to be the case. But I should have to take the man at his word. He is, I will add this because he would add it if he was here, for all his faults, nothing if not, fundamentally in touch with the British voting public. If there is any man that has his finger on the pulse, it is Nigel Farage, and to be able to read people and figure out, whether or not he can rely on their vote, whether or not they are willing to take a chance on him, as much as he has been willing in his entire life to take a chance on them. I will leave that to his good judgment. Now, let's talk about that polling. Let's talk about where those votes currently lie. Back in the day, back in 2015, that was the election that I fought with Nigel when he was running for a seat in South Thanet, that is the southeast of England. The UK Independence Party got 12.6% of the vote share. 13%, we always say, we round that up. And it got just one member of parliament. It actually really turned into having 0 members of parliament, because the guy who was elected in a seat called Clacton turned out kind of to be a duplicitous figure who was really just trying to take Nigel's position as leader of the party. That attempted coup got rumbled by yours truly, amongst others, and we soon put an end to that. But ever since then, there has not really been any electoral representation for that UKIP vote, for that Brexit vote in the British Parliament. There have been, defections here and there, but formally speaking, the Brexit movement, the Brexit Party, has been, I'm not going to say in exile, but certainly in far distant opposition since 2016. This, and gosh, hasn't it been a long time, this situation that we now find ourselves in the UK is really quite extraordinary, because if you fast forward through, so they had that election on the 7th of May 2015. They then had another election on the 8th of June 2017. That was when Theresa May was elected as Prime Minister. Some of you may remember her holding hands with President Trump in the White House. Then you had another election in 2019, which is when Boris Johnson took power and got that whopping big majority, 365 seats against Labour's 202, and of course, immediately started governing to the left, locked the country down, did all sorts of things far worse even than Dr. Fauci tried to do to the United States in the United Kingdom. And then, of course, you had the removal of Boris Johnson, the appointment of the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. So really quite a tumultuous time in British politics, quite a time full of change in terms of leaders and representation. Even the Labour Party has gone through that. The Scottish National Party has gone through that, which really has a huge influence north of the border. And the Liberal Democrats have gone through their own changes too. Now, the situation as it stands today is that the Reform Party looks to have, in the last poll that was taken, I think it was Saturday, or at least on Saturday, 14% of the vote. And 14% of the vote really means that they're already a little ahead of the place that UKIP was at. You could probably hear the sirens going past beautiful Washington, D.C., where UKIP was at 12.6%, and the Reform Party now polling at 14%, and that is a real achievement. It tells you that there is genuinely an institution there, an infrastructure there, a brand that people are aware of. And so, we'll talk about Richard Tice earlier. He has led the party since Nigel stepped down as leader in 2021, and he took up a job on GB News, really became the Tucker Carlson, when Tucker Carlson was at his peak for Fox News, really became the Tucker Carlson of the United Kingdom hosting that nightly show on GB News up until last week, where he gave up the show and he said, I have to go, my party needs me, and my country needs me. And it's a big sacrifice, actually. He's probably, I can't get into the specifics, but I can tell you that he is not poorly paid, nor should he have been in that job. He has had freedom to go around and do things in the United States, do lots of speaking engagements, raise his profile on this side of the Atlantic, and help and support the populist movement here, as you know, with Donald Trump too. And that was, where a lot of people wanted him, myself included, wanted him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But of course, if he sees that there is an opportunity here, as he clearly has, then it's probably the right thing to do. So what does it get you? 14%. At the moment, it's not particularly clear because, just like in 2015, the vote share will be spread quite thinly across the country. Doesn't mean it's enough to kind of get you over the line in very many constituency seats. That is to say, that you may actually end up returning just 1, 2, 3, maybe up to 5 members of parliament. However, and this, by the way, has been one of the reasons why so many people have called for a abandonment of the first past the post system, and an adoption of the proportional representation system. A lot of people have their views on both of those things. A conversation, I think, probably for another day. But the one member of parliament who you did have defect, actually a former chairman, I think, of the Conservative Party in a quite a fabulous coup for the Reform Party, Lee Anderson. It's not abundantly clear if he'll be able to hold his seat against the Conservative Party in this election. But, with the Tories, extremely, 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 I cannot stress it enough, extremely unpopular, wildly, wildly. And do you know what? I sounded like him there. He says that a lot. Do you know what? I make myself laugh. I'm still sick. Do you know what? Can't do it. Deservedly so. Deservedly low, low, low ebb for Britain's Conservative Party. If you start to creep up over that 15% threshold, if you start to play in 20% territory, well, then actually what you may find, and what I think prediction you will find in at least some of the polls that come out between now and the election in 1 month's time, there's not a long period of time here, is that you will find Reform chipping away at the Conservative Party's vote even more, perhaps even overtaking them in some national polls. That would be an absolute historic humiliation for the governing party of the United Kingdom, for the party that has been in government more than any other institution, for a party that is, several hundred years old. I think really predates even the founding of the United States. Yeah, it's been through different perturbations, just like the Reform Party, but the same thing, at its heart, at its core. That would be really quite extraordinary. Now, here's something else to think about: is what have we seen over the last week? We've seen a Labour Party which is kind of trying to flex both left-wing credentials and trying to win over Conservative voters at the same time. And it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very duplicitous, and it's fraudulent, and it's fake, and people can see through it. And they can see through it because, on the one hand, the leader of the Labour Party, probably the next Prime Minister, barring a miracle, Sir Keir Starmer. What did I even say? Sir Keir Starmer. Sir Keir, Keir, Starmer, Starmer, very Blairite, Clintonian, soft neoliberal left. He's going up there and saying, no, no, I'm a socialist. And then the next day he's going up there and going, well, no, no, I would close the borders and bring immigration down. And the twain shall not meet. And I don't just meet in a governing sense. I mean, they shall not meet in the public's mind. You can't sell it because people won't buy it. And so they're starting to hit a limit in terms of what they can talk about and how and what they can convince people of. And this gives reform a little bit of a passage to break through on the right and say, look, we get it, Tory voters. You really don't want to vote for the Conservative Party this time, but goodness me, don't vote for the Labour neoliberals under Sir Keir Starmer. And that could lead to a decent bench of seats in Parliament. And now, look, I'm not talking about hundreds, but we may be talking about double digits. We may be in a situation where actually the Reform Party can have a better impact and more representation than just one or two MPs, because that it doesn't really get you all that much. Doesn't really give you the swing vote in any scenario, especially when Labour are expected to have quite a big majority. Remember, I'll read from you from the last 3 or 4 polls here just to give you an idea. The Delta poll, which came out today on Monday, puts Labour at 48% of the national vote, the Conservative Party on 25% of the national vote, Lib Dems on 10, SNP on 2, Greens on 4, Reform on 9, other parties 3. The JL Partners poll, also I think out today, slightly larger, double in fact, the participant size, 43% for Labour, 26% for Conservatives, Tories as we call them, 11 for Lib Dems, 3 for SNP, 3 for Green, 12 for Reform. Redfield and Wilton, which has a 10,000 sample size, that's 5x the JL Partners one and 10x the Delta Poll one. Labour 46, Tories 20, Lib Dems 10, SNP 2, Greens 5, Reform 14. So you see, the larger the sample size, it seems the better that the Reform Party does. And actually, the larger the sample size, you'll also see Labour's vote holding across all those different avenues. So, very interesting dynamics, very interesting announcement today. Not one that I expected, to be honest with you, although I have spoken with Nigel over recent days, and he has said again and again that he kind of regrets not being involved. I didn't expect the U-turn. What I do expect, however, and this is something really interesting and something to look out for, and I really wish I could go back for this election, but leaving the pulse and the business would probably be a bit of a disaster. No offense to any of the staff. I need to have an editorial viewpoint over it, which some would say can be done, but then you factor in time difference, and you're in travel and transit, and you're trying to cover things over there, and I've done it before. It's a young man's game. I'm less of a young man than ever before. It's very, very difficult. And by the way, I said to myself last week, as I got sick, in another weekend of travel, which would make it like the 14th in a row for me or something, I said to myself, that the things I do today are a young man's game, and I really enjoyed them when I was in my 20s, and I could do them week in, week out, be on a plane, be on a train, be at events all day long, meeting thousands of people, etc., etc. On the beers all night long, 3 hours of sleep, not a problem. It's a problem now. It's a very, very stark problem now. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'll make it. I will regret not making it if I don't. But, them's the breaks. But having said that, God works in mysterious ways. And there are things that I was going to be doing here in the United States over the next couple of weeks, which, let's say, I can't talk too much about it right now, but you may hear about it down the line, which I won't be doing over here over the next couple of weeks. It's nothing that you know about yet. Don't stop speculating. Just saying things that you have no idea what I'm talking about now. Okay, but you may. We'll see how it all shakes out. There is a big picture at the end of all of this, ladies and gentlemen. And that is to say that if Nigel getting back in this race and leading the Reform Party into really being overtaking the Tories and really being the vocal right-wing opposition in UK politics, well then when there is an election next time around, you can actually genuinely see if they do everything right, and they really do have to do everything right in this scenario, if they do everything right, he could well be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, within the next 5-10 years. Now, Nigel is 60 years old, but he is an Energizer bunny. He is ethanol fueled, as we say, as in to say, you can give him as much beer as you want, and it will not dehydrate him or tire him out. If anything, he is the greenest politician in the world because of that, and he vibes off it, right? He thrives in that scenario. Goodness me, am I not envious of it? But if anybody can do it, I'm not going to say at his age, because he's not exactly an old man, but he's not getting any younger. But if anybody can do it, it's him. And I think if anybody has shown us, that these things are possible, that this level of energy is possible, then it's the Nigel Farage of America, right? It's Donald Trump. So there you go. That's what's happening. That's what Nigel did today. That's where it can go. That's why he did it. That's the background of it. And as a sort of celebration of this moment, of this historic moment, I made another one of my magical AI music pieces for you. So I hope you share this show. I hope you join the National Pulse, because that is the only way that we make any money at all. And I'm not talking about profit in my pocket here. I'm talking about hiring staff, keeping the site up, developing new technologies, getting the news out faster, getting the site loading faster. All of these things that the New York Times doesn't have to worry about because they're corporate backed and corporate sponsored, and the Atlantic doesn't have to worry about because it's owned by a billionaire, and so on, and other outlets don't have to worry about because they just throw ads at you, ugly ads at you all the time. I know who's listening to this. Hi, Jack. Look, we don't do that. There's no offense to anybody who does. It's just not our philosophy. So to support our work, to support me sitting here and walking you through this kind of thing, to support the wonderful analysis pieces that we have up from the team over at thenationalpulse.com, all the news that we write and break all day long, it's thenationalpulse.com/upgrade. If you can't, I totally understand. Not everybody has disposable cash right now. Make sure you share these articles. Do your little bit where you can. Send this show to people. Tell them to give a listen. Tell them to join. And I'll see you on the show next time. Enjoy this. I know I did.
Here he comes, Nigel Farage. He's the leader now, taking charge. Took a little time out, now he's supercharged. And all the whole world's been dreaming and screaming about him winning Clacton and then overachieving. So we can be the next opposition leader for England and start the deportation of the illegals and heathens. But you see, everywhere he goes, now we'll get attacked for his views. They criticize what ties he wears in his shoes. He's a man who's used to being abused, and this time there's no chance you can lose. This time there's no chance you can lose. Yeah, he's running in a town called Clacton, and he's about to go and get his campaign back on. And it doesn't matter if you're a black or white one, as long as you're happy calling yourself a player. Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back. asking, can the Reform Party really reform Britain? Considering the shit we're in, and the truth is if you're ruthless, anything is possible. It doesn't matter if the rain is falling, we'll call it tropical. And then we'll have a drop or two, maybe a doom bar, or maybe a master brew. That's what I'm asking you. If the question is, whose round is it? It's yours. You can't complain about the state of the nation at wars. We have a common cause. We gotta get down and dirty all fours. We gotta start thinking of our kids and what it's all for. And if there's enough, I'm calling your bluff. F the Tories, F Labour. Tell them to get stuff, tell them to get stuff, time to get stuff. Nigel's back, 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 Nigel's back. Reform. Tories, F Labour, two men, two's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, PG,
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Farage, reform, F the Tories, fuck 'em, F Labour, them two. Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back, Nigel's back.